It's known by many as the Hermit Kingdom, and that's because North Korea isn't exactly friendly to outsiders. Because of that, there is much we don't know about this insular country. Sure, we know what they want us to see, such as their big military parades and boasts of power, but what is really going on behind the scenes? We'll explore some dark aspects about life in North Korea that they don't want you to know about. To learn more about North Korea and everything else, be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications. Technology. Let's start off with a secret that is truly dark, literally. In January 2014, a photo taken by an astronaut on board the International Space Station showed a pitch-black North Korea compared to the surrounding lit-up areas. The world was shocked to see an apparently powerless North Korea, and people began to realize that they have trouble keeping the lights on. In fact, it's not unusual for mandated periods of darkness when the electricity simply cuts out and people are forced to make do. North Korea propaganda teaches that this is completely normal, and surely other countries experience regular daily power outages as well. People are forced to make do with lanterns and candles to get by, and often resort to archaic forms of technology to compensate for the lack of electricity. Having the government provide you with electricity might sound pretty good if you're tired of dealing with the electric company, but not so much when you realize they can shut it off whenever they want. When questioned about their lack of electricity, North Korean officials claim that it's totally not a big deal, and countries don't need fancy things like electricity to have a good time. Food shortages. Typically, when people visit North Korea, they're confined to its capital city, Pyongyang, where the illusion of prosperity is carefully maintained. Eric Lafroge was, well, we won't say fortunate enough, but he did get to visit the rural village of Jongpyeong-ri in North Korea. Of course, he also managed to get himself banned by taking illegal photographs there. But he brought back some startling information. It wasn't unusual to see people gathering grass and flowers into bags so that they could take it home and eat it later in the privacy. As a result of their inadequate food supplies and subpar nutrition, people in North Korea are about 1 to 2 inches to 3 to 1 inches shorter than their counterparts in South Korea. Because of their shared genetics, this is clearly a case of nurture over nature, and sadly North Korean children don't have access to plentiful nutritious food during their formative years. Travel. If you like the idea of going for a long, scenic drive around North Korea, we have some bad news for you. North Korea is 46,542 square miles, so just about the same size as Pennsylvania. The entire country has about 25,554 kilometers, or 15,878 miles of roads, and only 3% of them are paved. That means that only 724 kilometers, or 448 miles of road in all of North Korea are paved. In comparison, Pennsylvania has about 40,500 miles of paved state roads and highways alone. Since only about 11 out of 1,000 people in North Korea own a car, this isn't too huge of a deal, but it does mean that public transportation is a bit of a mess. It's not unusual to see massive lines as people wait in vain for a ride. There are subways, but most of them have been closed down for years. Some visitors to North Korea have noticed that people seem to pretend to mill around them as if to convince visitors that they're still functioning and to make the city look more bustling. Not to mention that most of them are about 360 feet underground, double the length of the deepest station in the London Underground. They're designed that way to protect against bombs going off, but it does make daily commute a bit more difficult. Childhood. Going to school to decide what you want to do when you grow up is not a thing that happens in North Korea. Based on your class and your family's social standing, all of that pesky career stuff is figured out for you by the government. For most children, this means spending most of your day toiling away doing manual labor. Child labor makes up a shocking amount of the overall workforce in North Korea, and refusing to work comes with harsh punishments. Getting to school is a challenge in itself because of the aforementioned transportation problem. Even if their village is lucky enough to have a school bus, it's likely converted from a dump truck and not quite up to snuff in terms of safety. Yoon-hee is a refugee from North Korea who was abandoned by her parents and was forced to live on the street. Growing up in North Korea is tough enough when you have parents, and Yoon-hee and her fellow orphans had nowhere to go. To make it through the harsh winters, they would break into factory sheds and curl up near the electric transformers to avoid freezing. Military. If there's one thing that North Korea loves boasting about, it's their military strength. But some people have questioned whether it's as forceful as Kim Jong-un would have us believe. During their military parades, many people couldn't help but notice the way certain missiles wobbled and bent as they made their way down the streets of Pyongyang. This led many experts to conclude that they are fake and intimidate all enemies of North Korea. Not to mention that although they brag about having a large military force, most North Korean soldiers are there because they're forced to be, and their training is subpar, especially for the female soldiers. Many photos have been surreptitiously taken of gaunt and emaciated-looking soldiers in North Korea. Even if they were the most well-trained army around, they still need to eat if they want to be any good in combat. One female defector claims that at mealtimes, she was given 3 spoonfuls of rice during her time in the North Korean Armed Forces. If we suppose each tablespoon of rice has about 13 calories, and she was being fed 3 meals of 3 spoonfuls per day, that's only 117 calories per day, or nowhere near what an adult needs. Women. Serving in the military isn't easy for anyone, but it's even more difficult for the women who are forced to serve. Defectors claim that they are raised to believe that they are not as smart, important, or as strong as men, so you can only imagine the difficulties they face because of this. If Kim Jong-un really does intend to have an army of 500,000 women to the front lines like he claims, it's only because he's protecting the men who are seen as more valuable. But despite not being valuable socially, women earn more than 70% of their household income on average in North Korea. This is because men are frequently forced to work for the state and they serve longer mandated time in the military. This gives women opportunity to earn income working for various black market enterprises while the men are working for the government. The main purpose of women under the regime in North Korea is to create and raise the next generation of male soldiers. Even those women who seem to hold powerful positions have only gotten there because of their male relatives and serve only to support them. Kim Jong-un's own sister, Kim Yo-jung, was promoted to the powerful bureau of the Workers' Party, but the promotion is nothing more than a way to bolster her brother's power. Free time. At this point, you might be wondering, what do people do for fun in North Korea, especially considering the couple hours a day of low wattage electricity they have to enjoy? If you feel like you don't get enough vacation time, people in North Korea are expected to work 6 days a week. Although Sundays are the official day off, many people work anyway and participate in collective labor such as cleaning streets or working on roads. North Korea does sometimes produce and screen movies for its citizens, but since attendance is mandatory, we aren't sure if we really count that as a leisure activity. Although they're banned, many people in North Korea risk it to watch bootleg versions of South Korean shows. Of course, since punishment includes forced labor camps as a best-case scenario, this pretty much qualifies as an extreme sport. North Korea famously has only a handful of television channels, but they now have a service comparable to Netflix called Manbang. This means that people can now watch propaganda and documentaries about North Korea on demand. Parks. If you're looking for something fun to do in North Korea, there is a zoo and a few amusement parks, but just like everything else in North Korea, they're really depressing. Pyongyang Central Zoo was built in 1959 under the order of Kim Il-sung, the grandfather of Kim Jong-un. There you can explore exotic species such as dogs. The conditions for most of the animals have been criticized for being woefully inadequate, but don't worry, you'll be glad to know that things at the zoo are improving. Their chimpanzee Azalea has recently stopped smoking after developing a pack-a-day habit, and no, really, we're not making that up. You might wonder how North Korea can afford to create water parks, theme parks, and zoos when they can barely afford to feed its own people and keep the lights on. These places are meant to show that North Korea is doing just fine, thank you very much. One visitor to the Myeongdae Fun Fair in North Korea claimed that employees insisted that it was a busy place, yet the only other people he saw were clearly bussed in for his benefit. Even with this effort, the place was far from crowded and not the amazing fun-filled park that North Korea likes to pretend it is. Kim Jong-un. It's no secret that Kim Jong-un is kind of a big deal in North Korea, but there is a lot about him that you likely don't know. It was a surprise to many people that he took over in the first place because his older brother Kim Jong-chul seemed like a much more obvious choice. Well, that is until he brought shame to his family when he was caught in Singapore attending an Eric Clapton concert. After Kim Jong-un succeeded their father, Kim Jong-chul attended a few more concerts and then retired to live a quiet life in Pyongyang where he plays in his own band. The eldest of Kim Jong-il's son is Kim Jong-nam, who shamed his family when he was caught trying to visit Tokyo Disneyland with a fake passport. After these embarrassments, Kim Jong-il decided that Kim Jong-un was the safest bet for an heir. In February 2017, Kim Jong-nam was taken out by an assassin at the Kuala Lumpur International Airport in Malaysia. It's under investigation, but many believe that it was set up by the North Korean government and by Kim Jong-un himself. Labor camps. Although the North Korean government has long denied their existence, thanks to satellite imaging, we know there is a network of labor camps hidden among the mountains. That is where you're sent if you're convicted of, quote, crimes against the state, which is a really vague term, often applied to things like watching black market soap operas or letting your framed photo of Kim Il-sung gather dust. Survivors claim that people there are forced to complete grueling labor for up to 16 hours a day, while they're intentionally starved. These facilities lack the most basic medical care and sanitation procedures that even our maximum security prisons have. It's estimated that there are currently about 80,000 to 120,000 people currently imprisoned in these North Korean labor camps. Needless to say, most of them won't be making it out. Those that do have often lost their teeth due to lack of care, and suffer many health problems that make working and supporting themselves outside of the camp almost impossible. Some Americans have been sentenced to work in North Korea, such as Kenneth Bae, who was arrested for promoting Christianity. After 2 years of forced labor, he suffered from numerous health and psychological problems, but experts say the camp he was sent to was comparatively lenient because they don't want outsiders to know the true extent of the atrocities they're committing. Would you ever want to visit North Korea, or have you safely crossed that off your bucket list? Let us know in the comment section if you'd like to book a trip there or not after hearing all this. Since the internet in North Korea isn't great, be sure to hit the subscribe button before you go. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.